Hi, my name is Ann Beschnett, and I'm the Subject Librarian for Public Health here at St. Kate's. Today in this presentation, we are going to focus on literature searching. Specifically, we're going to be looking at PubMed, and we'll also talk a little bit about Google Scholar as well. So we'll kind of start by talking about the literature searching process in general, and then we'll also talk about constructing a good search strategy, how to enter that search into PubMed, and how to access articles once you find some that you want to check out. So just a few words about literature searching before we actually get into it. So just know that literature searching can sometimes be a little bit frustrating, so know that happens to everybody. There are no perfect searches. You're always going to retrieve irrelevant results, and you may miss relevant ones. So just know if you do a search in PubMed or any database really, don't just look through the first 5 or 6 results and think that there's nothing there on your topic. You're really going to probably have to look through a few pages of results to really start to try and find things that are really going to be relevant to what you're looking for. So unlike a Google search, most databases don't have great relevancy ranking, so you're not going to find those great hits right at the very top of your list, so you're just going to have to kind of wade through a couple of pages of results more likely than not. There's no right or wrong way to search, but there are better ways to search, and we'll kind of go through some of those during our time together today. Also know that sometimes there just won't be anything on your specific topic. If you have a really specific population or geographic area that you're concerned with, sometimes you just won't find a lot of literature on that exact population or topic in general. So just being open to adjusting your search topic or your scope if necessary. Hopefully that won't happen with this class, with the assignments that you have, but just be knowing that that might be a possibility down the road as well. And just know that everybody struggles, even librarians, so even I have a hard time sometimes finding information. So just know that it is a bit of a process, so allow yourself a little bit of time when you are going through the literature searching process, just so you don't get frustrated if you're in a time crunch. So just allow yourself a little bit of time when you're going and approaching a search. So like I said, we're going to primarily focus on PubMed, and I just want to say a few words about what PubMed is exactly. So PubMed is the publicly available interface used to search a database that's called Medline. The only reason I mention that, because that's actually a fairly boring fact, the only reason I mention that is if you do go into our list of databases, you will see 2 options to search Medline. One is Medline via EBSCO, and the other is Medline via PubMed. They both actually search the same exact database. It's just that PubMed is freely available for anybody to use, so even after you leave the university, you'd still be able to use it. And EBSCO is something that we pay to subscribe to. I personally think that PubMed does a much better job, especially with things like keyword searching, so that's why, in addition to the fact that anybody can search it, so you can search it after you leave the university, that's why I like to show it to students while they're here. So PubMed, it's big. It contains over 26 million bibliographic citation records, so that's why when you do a search in there, sometimes you get an overwhelming number of results because it is searching a lot of different, records. It does cover all specialties of clinical medicine, public health, nursing, allied health, so it really is kind of our go-to database in the health sciences. It is primarily citations from scholarly journals and primarily also peer-reviewed publications, but you will notice one difference between PubMed and a lot of the other databases that we subscribe to is that there's not a nice peer review limit in the database like you'll find in other ones. That's because most of the stuff that's in there is from scholarly publications, and they are from peer-reviewed publications, but you can't say everything is, so you still have to look at things with a discerning eye, but just know that piece. It is an abstract-only database, so it does not search, when you do a keyword search, it doesn't search the full text of articles, it just searches the abstract. That also means that you won't necessarily find too many full-text articles within the database, so you'll need to click on the St. Kate's Find It link to see if we have access, and we'll demonstrate that in a second. Since it is freely available for anybody to use, you could just go to pubmed.gov and start searching, but you really want to go through the St. Kate's Library website to make sure that you get those Find It links so that you can check our subscriptions to see if we have access to the article that you're looking for. So PubMed is really searching the entire body of literature that's out there, regardless of whether or not we have subscription to it. So that's why you will use the Find It links to see if we have access to the particular article that you are interested in. So there are a few different ways that you can search PubMed. You can do both keyword searching or you can search for subject headings. Today we're really going to focus on keyword searching. So what that means is basically PubMed will search for the keywords that you enter in the search box anywhere in those 26 million citation records that are in the database. So again, that's why you tend to get a lot of results. Because of that, because it really is just looking for those keywords that you put in there, it does do a little bit of behind-the-scenes searching and kind of searches for some other terminology based on the keywords that you put in there, but it really is searching for those keywords that you enter in there anywhere in the record. So you do need to be aware of things like alternate spellings or synonyms, anything like that, because you'll want to search those as well if you're trying to do a kind of a good, thorough, comprehensive search. Remember, the more words that you put in, the fewer results you'll get. So a lot of students will be tempted to kind of type in their entire research question, but you really want to start to break down your search into its separate components and search those. And we'll go through a demonstration on that in just a second. So with the keyword searching, that's why when you put in keywords such as food desert, you do get articles back that are on kind of the public health concept of a food desert, but you also get articles back that are on food in the desert, because it really is just looking for those keywords. It's taking you very literally. It's not really translating your search into what it thinks you might actually mean by that, by those terms that you put in there. It really is just looking for those keywords anywhere in the record, regardless of what you mean by it. That's also why it's important to think of synonyms or related terms to describe a concept. So especially in the health sciences, a lot of times there might be more than one way to describe a specific concept. So for instance, if you were looking for articles on heart attacks, so an author could describe that as heart attack, or they could use the terminology myocardial infarction. So if you were to do a keyword search for heart attack, you might miss some of the articles that actually use myocardial infarction in place of the words heart attack. So that's why it's important to think of those synonyms and related terms to describe the particular concept that you might be working with. And we'll go through an example today to try and demonstrate that. So when you approach a search in PubMed, you really kind of want to take a moment to just kind of get yourself organized. What you really want to do is take your search, your research question that you have, and really break it down into its separate components. And then take those separate components and brainstorm the different keywords, synonyms, or related terms that might be useful to you in your search. So if you remember, we had our example before about heart attack and myocardial infarction. Same thing goes with things like high blood pressure and hypertension, two sets of words that mean the same thing. Obesity, another way to maybe kind of that an author might describe kind of that basic concept is talking about BMI or body mass index, exercise or physical activity, even things to describe populations, so child or adolescent. So keeping those kind of things in mind as well. So for some of your assignments in this class, you'll need to find both descriptive and intervention studies. Sometimes these can be a little bit tricky to try and find in PubMed just because of the way the database is set up and the way it searches. So what you really want to do is kind of think of some keywords that you might want to add to your search to try and get at these two different types of studies. So I've kind of given you some keywords that you can consider adding to your search for both of these. So for a descriptive study, you could be looking for specific types of studies that would get at that in public health, which would include cross-sectional study, case control study, cohort, maybe even just keywords such as surveillance, determinants, or prevalence. When it comes to intervention studies, there are some other keywords that you could try using. So things like program, policy, project, screening, prevention, promotion, evaluation, education, or intervention. I've seen a lot of students in the past, they'll put in kind of their topic and then they'll put in the keywords public health intervention. But again, remember, unless somewhere in that citation record, so somewhere in the abstract, unless the author puts something to the effect, puts the actual words, this is a public health intervention, that record would not necessarily come up, even though it might very well be a type of intervention study that you're looking for. So I've put these, I'll show you in a few moments where you can find these keywords. I have put them on a public health research guide. So you can kind of reference those later when you are doing your searching by looking there. So I'll show you how to find that research guide in just a moment. So then once you kind of have your search terms and you've broken it down, you've tried to think of those alternate terms or synonyms, you want to create a search strategy using Boolean operators, which are and, or, also not, but we don't really talk about that one because we don't use that too often. You can also determine if you can use limits instead of using keywords, so things like population type. study type, date range, things like that. So see if you can utilize limits to try and narrow down your result set to something that's manageable and useful to you. Then you just need to choose a database and start searching. So we will talk, again, mainly about PubMed. We'll also briefly touch on Google Scholar a little bit later. But there are other databases such as Synonyms, which is nursing and allied health, but also sometimes has, some public health related stuff in there as well. So it might just be a matter of determining which database might be most useful based on your topic as well. From there, if you're doing a search and nothing's coming up, you just need to kind of revise your search strategy, or sometimes your topic is necessary, trying different keywords, combinations, things like that. So this is going to be our example topic for today. So let's say I'm interested in finding articles on mental health disparities in the LGBTQ community, specifically in teens. So like I said before, we want to break out the main concepts of my search. We don't want to just put this whole complete sentence in PubMed, because I'm not going to get very many relevant results, or probably very many results at all, because it's going to be searching for each one of those words if I were to put it in. So really my main concepts for this search are going to be mental health, LGBTQ, and teenagers. So then we need to think of maybe some synonyms that we might use for our main concepts. So if we think about mental health, what might we actually be talking about when we talk about that? So maybe kind of two top ones might be specifically depression and anxiety. So if an author wrote a paper on depression in the LGBTQ teen community or population, and I only use the search terms mental health, then that article would not come up, even though it might be relevant to me. So again, just trying to think of those alternate terms. Moving on to the next part of our search, the LGBTQ population. So we probably actually want to go ahead and spell out each piece of LGBTQ, just to make sure that we are gathering or getting any results back there talking about any segments of that population, so no matter what terminology is used. Then if we move on to teenager, other ways that we could describe that population, possibly either just talking about youth or adolescent. So now we have those kind of main pieces of it, but for your assignments, we need to also think about looking for either a descriptive study or an intervention study. So maybe thinking about some of the keywords that you could use to find a descriptive study. So maybe putting in prevalence or determinants. If I was looking for an intervention study, maybe I'd be putting in keywords such as program or screening or intervention or something like that. So now that we have kind of our keyword set, we need to actually combine our keywords using Boolean operators to make this, kind of form this into a good search strategy. So if you're not familiar with Boolean operators, I'm just going to cover those quickly, because if you don't use them correctly, then you're going to end up with some really bad results. So we're going to go through these fairly quickly. So the Boolean operator AND, it usually is used to connect two separate ideas, and it retrieves results where both words must be present. So the more concepts you combine with AND, the fewer results you have, and most databases actually automatically AND all your search terms together, so keeping that in mind too. So if we did a search for smoking and lung cancer, and you do need to put it in capital letters, if we did a search for smoking and lung cancer, it would bring back results. They would all have to have the words lung cancer and the word smoking somewhere in the record. The Boolean operator OR retrieves results where either word or both words can be present, and it usually connects similar concepts or synonymous terms. So thinking about adolescent or teen or youth. So you're really connecting those similar concepts. Like I said, the more concepts you combine with OR, the more results you get, because it's looking for the occurrence of any of those words and not just both. So if you did a search for smoking or tobacco, you get a set of search results back that were on either of those terms, or possibly had both of those terms in it as well. And then nesting is also a really powerful thing to use within most databases. So basically it kind of acts as the order of operations in math. So whatever done in parentheses is done first. So if we said smoking or tobacco and lung cancer, it would bring back results. They would all have to be on lung cancer, but they could be on lung cancer and smoking, lung cancer and tobacco, or on all three concepts. So this just allows for a much more complex search, and we'll kind of demonstrate that when we can combine our searches here in just one second. So So you can see this is how you could construct a search using keywords and using the Boolean operators and nesting. So we have in one nest at the top, mental health or depression or anxiety. Combine that with and, we have LGBTQ or LGBT or lesbian or gay, bisexual or transgender or queer, so trying to get all of those search terms in there. And teen or adolescent or youth in nested terms there. And prevalence or determinants. So basically what we're going to need when we do this search is we'd get a set of results back that have to have at least kind of one of the terms from each of these sets of parentheses. So hopefully we would be getting some results back that are going to be on our topic. So let's go ahead and search. So there are a few ways to get to PubMed. So from the library homepage, which is just library.stkate.edu, you can find a link to the library pretty easily. If you go into your Gateway account, there's a nice link in the upper right-hand corner. Otherwise, from the main St. Kate's page, if you go under academics, you should also be able to find us there as well. But to find PubMed, there are also a few ways on our website. So the first way is if you go under articles, this is basically going to bring you to a list of the different databases that we subscribe to. And it's pretty easy to find PubMed because we have it listed under our favorite databases. If you scroll down to the bottom here, you can find PubMed there. I am also going to quickly show you from our library homepage that research guide that I mentioned before that will have some of those keywords for both the descriptive and intervention studies. And it's pretty easy to find that as well. So if you go and click on research guides under the kind of the main search box here, go ahead and you can just put in public health. Should come up here. So the other thing you will find on this page is my contact information. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you ever have any questions about finding journal articles or anything really about the research process, anything even down to formatting citations. I'm happy to help. So this is one easy way to find my contact information. If you remember, let's see, I mentioned finding those keywords for intervention and descriptive studies. So under the search tutorials box here, we have those keywords listed out here. Otherwise, if you go to the articles tab, this is where we have those databases listed. So you can also access PubMed from here. I'll go ahead and do that quick. All right. So here's PubMed. So nothing too flashy here. So I could go ahead and start constructing my search by just putting everything in the search box here, but I'd have to be careful about adding the parentheses and the Boolean operators and everything like that. So I think actually an easier way is to go into the advanced search screen, because this will actually give you kind of a nice form that you can start to use. So we can just actually go ahead and start to put in our terms. So basically each concept that we have, we're going to break it off into a different line here. So we can see do mental health or, and you can see actually it's starting to combine, actually starting to nest our terms for us up here. So we don't have to bother putting in those parentheses. So that's kind of why I like to use this advanced search screen, because it kind of does some of that work for us. So we have our first concept in the first line here. If we go to the second one, so you notice I did put in LGBTQ or LGBT because when we do a keyword search, it's really just looking for whatever we put there. And so really I'm putting both of those in there to make sure that we get any articles that might be using kind of either sets of terminology there. So we have that, and then we'll add our population. Then we'll put in the type of study that we're looking for. So we'll say that we're looking for a descriptive study for this one. So we'll try those keywords to see what we can get. So again, you can see it nested all my terms for me up here, so I don't have to worry about that. And then all we have to do is click on the search button and cross our fingers that we get some results. So you can see we get quite a few results, 530. We can start to narrow down our results set a bit by using the filters that are along the left-hand side here. One filter that I'll kind of steer you away from is you might be tempted to click on the full text, but don't do that because really that's just limiting you to articles that happen to be available free full text through PubMed and not necessarily just through our subscriptions. So I would stay away from that unless you really needed something really, really quickly. And that's one quick way to get a hold of something, but just kind of ignore that one for the most part. Another one that a filter that you might want to use is the publication date range. So usually in the health sciences, we're looking for nothing more than 5 to maybe 10 years old. So that could be one filter that you want to go ahead and put on there. You can also click on show additional filters to see all the different ones that are available. So if you were looking for a specific population, either male or female, you can narrow it down to specific sex. Ages is also a popular one. Also languages, so it's always very disappointing when you think you find the perfect article and then you find out that it's only available in German and you don't speak German. So if you're only comfortable in a particular language, you might want to go ahead and put that limit on there as well. So basically you just click on them, hit show, and then those limits will show up. And actually with this one, we could have gone ahead and applied a age limit to adolescent, and we could have left out that teenager part of our search and really just put on the limit there, but either way should work. So let's just say I want the last 5 years. So that helped cut it down quite a bit. So basically from here, you're just going to want to go through and start to look through your result list and see what kind of articles you're getting. And once you find one that seems to be relevant to what you're looking for, go ahead and I'm just going to click on one of these. If you click on it, you're going to go and you are going to see basically the complete citation information, and then also you're going to see the abstract. So hopefully this will help you, give you some clues as to whether or not this article might be useful for you. So read through the abstract, see what you think, and then once you've decided that you want to see if we actually have access to this, what you can do is you can click on this online full text link over here. So we recently went through a website redesign, so hopefully in the near future you should actually see, in place of this turquoise link, a purple St. Kate's branded Find It link. That's really what you're going to look for in the future, but just temporarily we have this turquoise one there. So in the future, look for the purple link. Right now it's this turquoise one. Basically what this is going to do, it's going to search our catalog to see if we have access to this article, because remember, PubMed is kind of searching everything that's out there regardless of whether or not we have a subscription. So that's the button you're going to click on to see if we actually have access to it or not. So unfortunately it looks like there's something temporarily wrong with the server for this particular journal, so this is probably a bad example, but usually it will dump you kind of directly into the journal article. You might have to look for like the PDF download button or something like that. Sometimes it will bring you to the journal itself and not to the actual article. In that case, you're going to look for a section that maybe says something to the effect of archives or past issues, and then you can use the citation information that's over here on the right-hand side, including the year, volume, issue, page, to then drill down to find the actual article that you're looking for. So I apologize that this wasn't a great example, but usually you should be directed directly to the actual article itself. Oftentimes, or at least sometimes, you might come across an article that looks really great, but ends up that we don't have access to it. So I'm going to try and find one that kind of fits that here. So let's go ahead. I'm going to click on this one. Okay, so this one, for instance, it's saying, sorry, no holdings were found for this journal. So that basically means that no, we unfortunately don't have access to this particular journal, but you can still get your hands on the article most likely. So all you need to do is click on the request a copy through interlibrary loan. You'll fill out some basic information, including your barcode, which is on the back of your student ID, and then we will go and try and find it from another institution, and it's usually delivered to you electronically. It usually just takes a couple of days, but it does take longer, so just keep that in mind, that even though we can almost get you anything that you'll need for your research, it might take a couple extra days if we don't physically own it. So just keep that in mind when you're kind of planning out your research process. But again, we can get a hold of almost anything you'd possibly need. So you just fill that out and you'd be notified when we got a hold of it for you, and you'd be given a link and you'd be able to access the article. I'm also going to point out in PubMed that there are some other kind of nice features with this. Similar articles section over here, it's kind of using a word-weighted algorithm to try and find articles that are related to the article that you're currently looking at. So you can, sometimes that can be a nice way to try and track down related articles as well, especially if you're having kind of a hard time finding anything that's really relevant, but maybe you found one really good one. That might be another way to help try and track things down there. So that is PubMed in kind of a really quick nutshell. Again, remember, if you ever have any questions, I'm more than happy to help, so please contact me. But that's PubMed for the most part. I also wanted to really briefly touch on Google Scholars because I know a lot of students like to use Google Scholar. That's perfectly fine. Just want to talk a little bit about the advantages and disadvantages and kind of how it differs from PubMed. So the advantages, obviously, it's a super easy search interface. We all know how to Google something, right? So it's easy to use. It's something that's familiar to us. It does search across disciplines and sources, so that's kind of nice in public health, which is a discipline that does kind of touch on a lot of different subject matters. It does search the full text of at least some articles. So it's not just looking in the abstract for information, but it's pulling information and keywords from the entire full text of some articles anyway. Google Scholar generally does have better relevancy ranking, so Google is really good at relevancy ranking, and that kind of shows in Google Scholar as well. So a lot of times you will find those useful things kind of early on in your search results. You might not have to go through quite so many pages of results. And you can easily see what papers have cited the paper you're interested in, and I'll kind of point that out. So that can be a nice way to track things down too. So if you find an article that's really useful, but maybe it's a little bit older, if you click on the cited by link when you're looking at the entries in Google Scholar or the results set in Google Scholar, you can see what other articles have cited it since it's been published. Those are probably going to be in a similar topic, and they're going to be newer as well. So it's another way to try and track down some other articles. Some disadvantages: we don't know exactly what it's searching. So Google Scholar doesn't let us know, doesn't give us a list of all the publications that it's searching. So we don't know exactly what it is going out there and searching, and only basic limits are available, so nothing like age groups, study types, really just kind of limited to date ranges and things like that. And you can't combine or save searches like you can in most of the other databases. So it is a great tool, but I usually encourage students to use it as a supplement to and not necessarily a replacement for the subject databases like PubMed or one of the other ones that we subscribe to. Some search tips: so using things like the advanced search feature can be helpful. You can do things like use quotation marks around phrases. Again, really kind of taking the time to build a good search with that alternate terminology, using parentheses and or, so high blood pressure or hypertension, and again using that cited by link to see what other articles have cited that paper. So here's just kind of a quick example of why it's important to really construct a good search strategy. So Google Scholar, even more so than PubMed, really is just searching for your keywords that you stick in there. So again, using our hypertension or high blood pressure example, you can see that we did a search with both of those terminologies, and we get completely different sets of results, even though it really is on the same concept, just different terminologies used. So if you take the time to construct a good search strategy, so if we did something like put within parentheses high blood pressure in quotation marks, so it searched it as those three words together in that order, not just the words high, blood, and pressure anywhere in the record. Or hypertension, you can see that those results then are kind of interfiled, so you are kind of picking up everything on that concept no matter what terminology is used. Also remember to always access through the St. Kate's Library, access Google Scholar through the St. Kate's Library, or set your preferences in Google Scholar, so that way basically it will recognize you as an affiliate of St. Kate's, and that will allow the find it links to show up to appear so you can actually check for full text access. Otherwise, if you don't do that, then you're going to hit a paywall, and again, you should never really have to pay for anything that you'll need in your research while you're here at St. Kate's. And then the last thing I'm going to point out is just that we do have a lot of support for students in terms of Citation Help. So from the library homepage, again, library.stkate.edu, under Citing and Writing, you can click on citation styles, and we have the main ones that are used here at St. Kate's. So if you click on APA, you can see we have a quick guide to APA, which is basically going to give you the citation, how to form the citations for kind of the main different resource types that you might use in your research. So that's kind of a nice quick guide. The other thing I'll also point out is that we have the APA Style Guide to Electronic Resources. So if you have the actual APA manual, it's not as great at giving you examples of electronic resources because that book is now a little bit older. So we do have this online guide to electronic resources to help you format those citations as well. So we do have quite a bit of help in this section if you do have questions on formatting your citations and incorporating that into your writing. Otherwise, always please feel free to reach out and ask either myself or one of the other librarians here, either at the research desk or drop me an email. Just please ask us for help. That's why we're here, so we're happy to help you. If you need to find my contact information besides from that research guide, if you click on About Us, and if you go to Staff Contact Information, you can do Find Your Subject Librarian, and I'm right at the top there. If you click on More About Anne, you can find out all my information. You can even see my calendar if you want to make an appointment with me. But please feel free to reach out and ask any questions you might have about the research process. All right, well, good luck.